Playing straight through scales in the middle of your solos is difficult and boring. And that's why you guys need to learn my 3 favorite easy to shred sequenced patterns that are all centered around the number 6. Well, hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Spending hours upon hours of your life practicing straight through scale patterns is one of the biggest wastes of time that you can do. Not only is it extremely difficult to train your picking hand to navigate its way through scale patterns at high speed using alternate picking, but it's also just one of the most musically boring things that you could do. Try to think of any great solo that you know that features somebody playing straight through a scale without mixing up their phrasing or anything like that. Years and years ago, I became a big devotee of Paul Gilbert and his concepts of using scale sequences to navigate through scale patterns at really high speeds. But what I found is not only did it add a lot of interest to my playing, but they were actually just easier to do than cruising straight through any old scale pattern. So on today's lesson, I'm going to be showing you guys 3 of my favorite ways that I've ever found to navigate my way through any 3-note per string scale pattern, and they're all centered around the most unholy of numbers, 6. As always, you guys can find full tabs for this lesson over on my Instagram page at Ben Eller Guitars. Just search for hashtag Weekend Wankshop 261, find the tabs, and start shredding today. Downloadable tabs, backing tracks, bonus lessons, and much more are available to everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. There's all kinds of great stuff waiting for you over there, even starting at the $1 a month level. So be sure to click the link in the video description below and check out that Patreon page today. This week I'm going to be uploading a very special Patreon only episode showing how I use these 3 different 6-based patterns descending through scales. All the stuff we're talking about today is going to show you how to use these patterns while ascending, but the bonus lesson is going to cover the descending side of things, and you can only access that if you support my channel over on the Patreon page. So check it out. So first things first, the scale pattern I'm going to be using for all these examples today is a 3-note per string A Lydian pattern, starting from the low E string, fret number 5. I figure you probably already know major scales, minor scales, whatever. Might as well toss in a cool sounding, Steve Vai kind of tonality mode to make this stuff more better. The one we're using today goes like this. Starting on the low E string, play 5, 7, 9. A string, 6, 7, 9. Same thing on the D. G string plays 6, 8, 9. B string is going to go 7, 9, 10. High E string is going to go 7, 9, 11. And then I resolve some of these by moving up to the 12 on the high E string for a 4th note on that string. Get that scale pattern down really well before we move on, and also be sure to consult your doctor about any physical or dietary requirements that might inhibit you from playing these sick licks. Number 1, straight 6s. Now isn't that just snazzy, and doesn't it sound fantastic on this Fishman Fluence Classic loaded Ibanez RG 550 here. This is an original first year of production guitar, very cool, and it's never sounded better thanks to the Fishman Fluence Classic pickups, non-sponsored. So this is probably the easiest one to understand, so it's great to start here if you're new to these kind of sequenced ideas. Now here's the thing, whenever you take a 3-note per string scale pattern and alternate pick your way through it, you're gonna have a bad time. Because if you're alternate picking, the picking inverts every other string because they're all odd numbers per string, right? 3 is an odd number. So when you play the first string, it goes down, up, down, but the next string goes up, down, up. Then the one after that goes down, then up, down, up. So you're constantly going back and forth between starting with a downstroke and starting with an upstroke on the next string. Pretty tough. Now, whenever we take the 3 notes that are on any string in this pattern and simply play them twice, that solves that problem right away. Any odd number times 2 equals an even number, and even numbers per string are simply easier to play whenever you're alternate picking because it evens everything out. If I'm playing 6 notes on every string is going to feel the same. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So there's really a multitude of benefits here. For one, you get double the mileage out of any scale pattern that you know if you're playing like a really super blazing lick. It's easier to do, And also, it's just more musically interesting than cruising straight through a scale. So this entire sequence is really easy to understand. Just simply play up each string twice before you move to the next one. So here on the low E, I'm gonna play that 5, 7, 9 2 times in a row. Again, alternate pick, starting with the downstroke. Then I move on to the A string with its 6, 7, and 9 and play that 2 times. Same thing on the D. Then I move to the G with its 6, 8, 9 pattern. B is 7, 9, 10. High E is 7, 9, 11. And then just for resolution, I moved it up to that last 12th fret here on the E string. Keep in mind too, whenever you learn these patterns, you don't have to play the entire thing up, you know? A lot of times with these sequences, you know, I practice them going all the way through the strings like that, but if I did that in the middle of a solo, it would kind of sound like I was practicing in the middle of a solo. So keep in mind, you can use these ideas just to burn for a second, get back to some cool phrasing, get out of it with another burning sequenced idea and move on from there. But you don't necessarily have to play these all the way through from low E to high E in the middle of your solos. Most players will naturally feel these straight sixes as being sextuplets or 16th note triplets. That means that all 6 of those notes on every string fit conveniently inside of one beat, like this. That's got a nice groovy sound to it, and the thing that I like about playing this as 6s across a beat is that it makes you really concentrate on landing on that next string right at the arrival of the downbeat. I've talked about that chunking concept in many of my videos, including my "This is why you suck at guitar, your hand synchronization sucks" video, where we don't really concern ourselves with every note that's going by at that speed. We just kind of concern ourselves with the note that's at the front of the line. And whenever you play these 6s as sextuplets, the cool thing is that the first note on every string lands right there on the downbeat. So if you just concentrate on getting your ass onto that next string whenever that downbeat arrives, you're gonna be okay. Number 2, alt 6s. So this has all the benefits of the straight 6s in that it's an even number of notes per string, so it's really easy to shred through. It also lengthens out any scale pattern that you know really well. But it has the added benefit of being a little bit more melodically unpredictable. This is also a really versatile phrase because you can mix it up with your straight 6s however you want to. You could play one string worth of the alt 6s, followed by a string worth of the straight 6s, and keep flip-flopping them like that string by string. Really cool, less predictable sound that you can add into your playing with ease. The concept here is really easy to get down. Instead of just playing straight up the string 2 times in a row like we did with the straight 6s, we're going to turn these 3 notes into a big even number, 6, just by changing up the order that we play them in. So look at it this way. Every string in this pattern contains 3 different notes. A low note, a middle note, and a high note. Okay? Low, middle, high, low, middle, high, low, middle, high, and so on. How we play these alt 6s is to play the lowest note, the highest note. Okay? So you can see there I went from my 1st to my 4th finger, the 5th to the 9th fret on the low E string. So low, high, then you're gonna walk down to the low note, then walk up to the high note. I'll play it a few times here. Low, high, walk, down, walk, up. Okay? Low, high, walk, down, walk, up. Low, high, walk, down, walk, up. Low, high, walk, down, walk, up, and so on. These are really great patterns to work on if you feel like your little finger is weak or tends to kind of retreat away from the board, you know? I find a lot of times whenever players practice exercises and scale patterns that simply having them walking from, you know, this side of the hand to this side of the hand, they can kind of get in this habit where, you know, these fingers will retreat and pull away from the board because they're just not needed at that time. Like for example, like this, if I was playing a regular chromatic exercise, a lot of times I see beginner players do this, where the fingers are pulled away because You don't need them yet, you know? But whenever you play patterns like this that have you going from your first to your fourth fingers right away, you're gonna find that that little finger naturally starts staying closer to the board and kind of spanning your fingers out more, because you know that it's gonna be needed immediately. If you know you gotta go from here to here, you're not gonna have this finger pulled all the way out, you know what I mean? So whenever you practice sequences like this, instead of just straight ascending, you're gonna get a lot of a great workout here for your little finger and teach it how to stay closer to the board. So like the straight sixes, this is a 6-note per string phrase, so it's pretty natural to hear it and feel it as 16th note triplets, or 6 going across a beat, like this. But with this pattern and all the other ones that we're talking about, I also recommend practicing these as straight 16th notes, or 4 notes per beat. This is going to help you gain a lot of rhythmic control and also help disguise your patterns a lot more. Because whenever you hear this pattern, by now you can already predict what's going to happen on the next string, right? But whenever you have these patterns that are getting kind of, chopped up in weird ways because they don't necessarily fit metrically as 16th notes, it can sound a lot more randomized. Even though your fingers are going to be telling you you're playing this very stock, set in stone pattern, to the ear, if you're playing these as 16th notes, the pattern is really well disguised. Check it out. So let's say that's the pulse, and I'm thinking of 16th notes. So I'm going to be playing 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. Now, you're going to be using a 6-note phrase, so it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can hear how the 1 doesn't land on the beat all the time like it does when you play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 16th note triplets. It's a really cool effect that you can use to get double mileage out of any sequence that you know. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to gain more rhythmic control and mix up your phrasing, be sure to practice all of these as their natural sextuplet feel as well as 16th notes. And the triumphant finale, number 3, split sixes. I really like the sound of this, and you've heard it in dozens of different Paul Gilbert solos, as well as stuff by like Michael Keane from The Faceless or Ken Susi from Unearth. A lot of my favorite shredder hunks use this one all the time. Okay, so whereas the straight sixes pattern featured you putting all 6 notes on one string and then moving to the next and doing the same idea, the split sixes here are going to put 3 notes on one string, then 3 notes on the other string for a total of 6, okay? So like this. Now you can see I just played the E string notes, then moved straight onto the A string notes. But what we do from here is what makes it cool, because we're going to restart this idea from the A string. So it's essentially like we play E to A, that's our first 6 notes, then we play A to D, then restart from the D, D, G, restart from G, G, B, restart from B, B, E. So you could look at it as 6s occurring over pairs of strings. E, A, D, D, G, G, B, B, E. Now for me, that one is a bit more challenging to play at really high speeds because all of the string changes here take place after downstrokes. It's kind of my natural inclination, and anybody who's watched a lot of my videos already knows what I'm about to talk about here, but maybe this is your first one. It's my natural inclination to play in what we think of as a downward pick slanting kind of style of playing. If I just pick up my guitar and I play one of those, 6-bass licks, you can see how my picking naturally features the downstrokes going into the strings and the upstrokes kind of coming out. Now that means that I can change strings after the upstrokes really easily because my pick is in the air. But with these split sixes, because they begin on a downstroke and it's an odd number of notes, 1, 2, 3, that means that all the string changes are going to be happening after downstrokes. Check it out. Down, up, change on a downstroke, up, change off a downstroke, up, change, up, change, up, change, up, down, up, and so on. So whenever I'm playing these split sixes, I've got to really concentrate on flipping my picking hand into what we think of as more of a upwards pick slanting position. You can say that last downstroke on the low E string kind of escaped away from the face of the guitar. That way I could get under the A and snag it with that upstroke. Again, I naturally want to keep that downstroke in the strings like that. And if I was economy picking, that would be fine, because I could just go down on the next string too, right? But with this particular lick that we're trying to alternate pick, I've got to be sure to make that last downstroke on every string travel out and away from the face of the guitar, kind of pushing out from me like that, so I can make it under the string that I'm about to be at next. Of course, the easy cheater solution to all this is you could also just play this phrase starting on an upstroke instead of a down, and all the string changes would happen after upstrokes, which is my preference. So I could play this lick like this: up, down, 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 and all the string changes would be happening after upstrokes, which is kind of my natural strength if you want to look at it that way. Again, my natural weakness is changing at high speeds after downstrokes, but for me, changing after upstrokes is, easy as pie. So if I rephrase the picking on that to start with an upstroke, it instantly becomes a lot easier for me to do. But of course, just because it's easy isn't the reason to do it. I practice this lick starting with the downstrokes. I take my medicine and eat my vegetables and do what's difficult for me, because I know at the end of the day, it's going to help me become a better player. So be sure to practice that both ways. Hell, I recommend practicing all of these licks both ways, Practice those straight sixes starting with an upstroke. It's going to help you learn how to change strings after your downs. Again, my weak spot, because you're going to be going up, down, 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 up, down. So it really help you learn how to change strings off of your downs as well as your ups. So be sure with all these patterns to mix them up and practice them with as many different picking combinations as you can dream up. Now, from my experience, the spice of life is actually garlic powder, but when it comes to music, the spice of life is variety. And rather than playing these sequences straight through like we've been doing in this video so far, I want you guys to have it in your minds that you can mix up the phrasing of these as much as you want to attain a less predictable and more musical sound. So like, for example, if you took those straight sixes, right? Rather than just playing E, A, D, G, B, E, which has this kind of predictable melodic arc where it starts low and just creeps its way up higher and higher, you could mix that up by changing the phrasing up and have some like double backs in there, where maybe I go through a few strings, then I skip back a string, and then go up a few more, and then skip back again, like this. The idea there was I played through 3 strings, then went back one. Back, 2, 3, back, 2, 3. Just by taking a phrase that I was already comfortable with and changing up the phrasing, you get a lot more out of it than simply playing straight from low to high. So see what all combinations you can explore. Mix up your straight sixes, your alt sixes, and your split sixes, and as many different combinations as you can to come up with some really cool licks that are easy to blaze through and sound a lot cooler than just running straight up and down your regular old scales that you already know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for new stuff coming at you every single week. Ring the bell for notifications every time I put up a new slice of fried gold. If you like what you've seen on this video and want to say thanks, be sure to support my channel over on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. And don't forget, there's also a very special Patreon-only exclusive lesson covering how to use these ideas while descending through scales. And that's only available to members of my Patreon page. So be sure to click that link in the video description below to sign up for the Patreon page today. Well guys, it's been a blast as always, but it's about time for me to get away from this camera and, well, probably start editing this video. But as for you, I recommend you get away from the computer, grab your guitar, and do some practicing. Less clicking, more picking.